How are you?
I'm great, guys. How are you doing?
We're doing awesome, Courtney. Another day, another late comeback victory. I'm not telling you the Bears played a perfect game, but boy, oh boy, 18 put him on his back when he had to.
Yeah, I mean, just another game where he does what he does. And I think the cool thing for the Bears the last 2 weeks is that it seems like something's clicking with Caleb when he thinks, oh, I can actually, really hurt a team. I'm unstoppable with my legs. And he is. I mean, there was a moment, I was talking with Colson Loveland about this yesterday. He's like, how does he not get sacked? He's standing back there, he spins around, he runs around. I mean, there were multiple times. Even that throw, I think it was to DJ Moore on the run, the one that they didn't connect on, to be able to evade pressure like that, then get out on the run and be able to just beat defenders. He's an athletic quarterback that I think sometimes we forget about because for whatever reason, there were moments last year and even this year where it's he had to consciously think about using his legs. And now that it's a part of, his mindset, they run the ball better when he's a part of it, not when he's the main part of it. But I think his contributions there, what you saw on the final drive in Cincinnati to set up the touchdown, what you saw on the final 2 drives here to set up a touchdown to Rome and then to win the game himself there at the end, is that's Caleb coming into his own and utilizing something that I think was underutilized in the earlier part of his career.
I think one of the great positives as of late is C.J. Gardner-Johnson. It almost feels like last chance you for him, Courtney. Was away from football. Now he's back and really been able to pay dividends for the Bears just for certain plays. I was telling Kap earlier, though, without the takeaways, it's hard to define what Bears defense is because it was not good, a lot of it defensively until toward the end. So what do you think of the overall look of the defense as of late?
Let's start with the not good yesterday because the biggest glaring thing was we knew Jackson Dart is mobile and he's dangerous when he gets outside of the pocket. Why was there not a spy on him? And every defensive player I asked, obviously they're not going to throw their coach under the bus. That's a coaching decision to not have someone dedicated to making sure this, keeping contain on this guy. And they didn't. And that's the reason that, honestly, that's been a problem since the Tyler Huntley game. When they let him run around, get out of the pocket, make plays on the fly, that didn't seem to have anything remedied to it yesterday. And that was the issue. But I do think, the pass rush and what it is and what we saw from Austin Booker being out there in more of a starter's role, I think, it's marginal right now at best. Is it nice to see Montez Sweat kind of steadily getting more active every single week? Of course. But Hoodie, you brought up the C.J. Gardner-Johnson of it all, and I think it's pretty remarkable that a guy who was in his 79th game yesterday of his career was on the street for about a month after getting released off a practice squad, after getting released off an active roster kind of inexplicably after 3 weeks with the Houston Texans, to get your second chance this season and to have your first, career multi-sack game. He had 5 sacks entering the day yesterday, including the one we saw last week, and then to come away with what he did today, including the play that changed the game there in the third quarter. It's smart scouting, but it's also the risk reward the Bears knew that they were taking, and knowing that they had the infrastructure to bring in a player who had been in the system before, who they could support, who wouldn't be an issue here in Chicago. And I know it's been 2 games, and he has been places where he's worn out his welcome. Who knows what will happen in the future, but right now it's working. And I think they needed a player like that to get the takeaways going, but also to provide a spark where there's been times where it's felt like if they don't have the takeaways, then what else is there? Everything else feels kind of mediocre beyond that. So it was good to see that come alive in the third quarter, but I think there's a lot more stuff that they're going to walk away unsatisfied with, given the way that they let Jackson Dart break that game open. And if he finishes that game, if he doesn't get the concussion, I think it's honestly a different result that we're talking about today because of their lack of game plan for his rushing ability.
I had more concern with the drops offensively. I cannot understand.
Fair.
There were 8 of them. Zacchaeus had an absolutely horrific day catching the football. How does that get cleaned up? More Luther Burden, less Zacchaeus? What's your takeaway on that?
Well, I guess the solace here is that it didn't happen a lot going into today. I believe the stat was 5 or 6 drops going into week 10, and then they had 6 yesterday, which was, I don't know, do you blame it on the weather? Do you blame it on, if you blame it on the weather, then why did they get away from the run? Like, that didn't make a lot of sense. But yes, it was glaring, and I think a lot of those guys did not do Caleb any favors yesterday, which makes what they did at the end of the game and what he did at the end of the game even more impressive. But, that's the accountability factor. Kind of like with the false starts and the pre-snap penalties. Remember, they said they were going to do some unorthodox things in practice to try to remedy those things. I think you take that same approach in that if you are dropping passes, you don't get targeted as much. And whether it's Zacchaeus, Kyle Monungai had the drop too. Rome has had some drops, not just yesterday, but throughout the season. I think there's got to be something. If it's something that they're off, like especially when Caleb goes in scramble mode, if they can't click there, they've got to find an alternative, because those are missed opportunities. And if it hits you in the hands, I don't care if it's thrown a little bit behind you or if it's not a perfect ball, you are in the National Football League. Like, I don't like that excuse that a lot of fans want to give out, the pass was behind so-and-so. We had this last week with Rome Odunze when he dropped that ball in the end zone. It hit him in both hands. You're a number 9 overall pick. Make the damn catch. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I think that applies to everybody on this team. And if it keeps happening, I think it's more of an aberration, Cap. I really do. Like, I'm not trying to sugarcoat it and say it was, something that can just automatically get fixed, because it is concerning. But it hasn't been an issue up until this point, really. But if it continues to be an issue, then you absolutely have to, consider, I guess, unorthodox things to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Courtney, what's the latest on the injuries? Maybe some Bears coming back soon?
Yeah, well, the first one I wanted to bring up is, remember C.J. Gardner-Johnson left the game with a foot injury, and then he came back in. So he said that was the only thing there was a cramp, which is good. It was a pretty significant cramp, but obviously if they don't have him, they don't get that stop, and that's, pretty critical. Other than that, DJ Moore in the shoulder, he said he was fine after the game, but, that guy, for whatever reason, he can get hurt and still come back in and play through things. That's pretty remarkable. We know Dom Robinson, like Ben Johnson said the other day, I think it was last Monday when Dio Odengbo went out for the year, that they were hopeful. I think hopeful was the right word that he used, that he would be back soon, but didn't really offer much on that front as far as will they actually be getting him back at some point. So I think that those are kind of the wait and see ones. But other than that, I think they came out relatively healthy from yesterday's game.
Olin Kreutz tweeted yesterday that the Bears miss Dio Odengbo in run defense. Dio has been a convenient punching bag because he hasn't gotten pressure at the quarterback. He signed a big deal. Do we underestimate his value as a run defender? And I'm not defending the signing by any means, because you brought him in here to be a rush D edge. So what's your takeaway of what they're missing with him?
Well, they brought him in here to be the starting defensive end opposite Montez Sweat, and they figured out somehow a couple weeks into the season that he's better inside. That's a miss. That is a miss.
No question.
You can't spin it any other way. You paid him defense, and I'm not saying that interior guys get paid a lot of money. I don't want to belabor this point, but that's a miss. The run defense, though, that he provided, I think that was probably his best attribute on the edge. He was a better interior pass rusher, and he was able to seal the edge as a run defender better than I guess others have. And it's one game without him. Are fans really clamoring that they miss him that much? Is there? Because I don't know. I think he had a really quiet first 8 weeks of the season, and I don't know if there's much that you can be like, oh wow, they're really missing him out there that much. It's a significant loss in terms of what the potential was, but there's a lot more problems. I think I'd say TJ Edwards is probably the bigger loss if we're talking about run defense, and Ruben Hippolyte goes out of the game with injury. That's the only one Ben Johnson brought up as far as a guy who did not finish the game yesterday. To me, that was more significant than anything else. But we do know with TJ, so he had hand surgery, they're just going to put a cast on it and let him play with a club. So maybe that's a week, maybe it's 2, because remember, he's also still dealing with that hamstring injury that had him DNP as well last week. So that's one that I would keep an eye on this week, because we know that given how bad J.J. McCarthy played yesterday and how erratic that offense looks, they might try to lean on the ground game in Minnesota next week. And it would be, to their benefit if they're able to get T.J. Edwards back so they don't have a repeat of what happened yesterday.
Courtney, I was telling our listeners and telling Kap a few minutes ago that you could look at the Giants and say that's the Chicago Bears under Matt Eberflus more times than not, in which, the Giants fans, and I know that you have Giants fans and colleagues that will look at this game and say, why didn't Dable, go for the touchdown? Or how come there wasn't enough pass rush to get Caleb Williams down? Or why didn't the Giants win that ball game? You've covered that on the other side in that mirror effect. You've covered that Giants team that it actually was the Bears for many years because of the little things that the Giants didn't do. And we were talking about this earlier, like, how does Daboll not go for the touchdown when you're, 2-8? Like, it's unbelievable. But the perspective is the Bears are good, and when they weren't good, they kind of looked like the Giants yesterday.
No, you're right. And I mean, the 4th and 1 from the 1 to have Younghoe Koo kick a 19-yard field goal there, like, he played to win the game. Like, and you know that you're on the road. You're the worst team in the fourth quarter. Like, Denver wasn't that long ago, guys. Like, do they not remember what happened at that point? Like, where you see a 33-point lead disappear?
Yeah.
The thing about New York, more than just yesterday, is that it feels like there's a lot of parallels with that team and what is on the horizon of happening. I don't think that front office goes. I do think that coaching staff goes. So you have a coaching staff and front office, 50% of which will not be there in 2026, having just drafted a first-round pick. And it's the cycle that keeps repeating itself. That, to me, is more Bears-like than anything else, or at least Bears of the past, cycle that Chicago's now trying to break because they have the alignment between Ben Johnson, between Ryan Poles, and the belief that they're on the right track. They're a 6-3 football team right now. The Giants are 2-8. Like, that is like the most glaring thing that I saw yesterday. And Brian Daboll has a reputation as a quarterback developer, and I'm sure he's clamoring for more time to be like, look what I did with Josh Allen. Look how long it took, a couple of years. Give me more time with Jackson Dart. But patience has been running out there for a while, and even during that playoff year, did people forget they were a bad football team in the month of December? Yeah, they beat the Vikings in the playoffs, but then they got dog walked in Philly. Like, they weren't a good team. The cracks in the foundation were shown 3 years ago. Yet somehow that staff has been able to stick around despite some baffling decisions that they've made with personnel. Obviously, they're injured, but I think that's what Bears fans look at and say, that doesn't feel like it was that long ago for this franchise, and it wasn't. But you're in a much better place now when you have actual direction, when you can see what direction looks like, which that team doesn't.
Yeah, I think they're going to end up, from what I hear, keeping their GM but blowing out the coaching staff. But again,
yeah, rinse, repeat. I mean, that's the old Bears model.
It is, and the interesting thing is there is some talent on that roster. There's no question that they, when healthy, Scatabo and Neighbors and the young quarterback, they've got some talent there. But let's get back to our Chicago Bears before we let you go. Now you're traveling to Minnesota. J.J. McCarthy wasn't great yesterday. That is a winnable football game. What's your takeaway on Bears Vikings early in the week?
Might be the most important game that we look at from this stretch of like the first 11 weeks of the season. I don't know if that's like recency bias, but obviously it matters for the division because they're 0-2 right now. But like the stretch of division games that this starts then in the next month, because you've got Green Bay again, or Green Bay the first time on the road, and then Green Bay, on the road first. I'm trying to do this off the top of my head. You obviously have Detroit at the end of the year, right. But like 4 division games now from week 11 to 18. You've got to gain some ground there. So in the playoff picture, you can start, getting to winning tiebreakers and having the edge on some of the teams that might have the same record as you. But if you have a better division record, then that's going to help. And I think playing indoors, being in a situation where they're going to a team that's kind of going through what the Bears went through a couple weeks ago. They had 8 false starts yesterday. Like, they're having some pre-snap issues. I think the operation on offense with a quarterback who's trying to get back in and get in a rhythm and can't seem to connect with his receivers, and he's got some really good ones. That's something you take advantage of. And I know that Caleb Williams played pretty well against Brian Flores' aggressive blitz early in the season. And even dating back to last year when they played twice, he fared pretty well. So I think it's a winnable game. You're not at this stage where they're at right now. I don't think you're going into games. Plus maybe Philly, maybe the Lions at the end of the year, but you're not going into games expecting to be anything other than more of an even match. They've proved it. They've proved that they can win games that they shouldn't. They've proved that they can close out teams that they've let hang around for 3.5 quarters. I don't think that should be any different when they go to Minnesota this week.
Courtney, as always, we appreciate the time. We'll talk Friday.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Have a great week. There she is, Courtney Cronin on the Yuengling Hotline.
Yuengling, the oldest brewery in America.
Shot or no shot comes your way in 2 minutes on the Kap and J Hood